Hey guys, in this video, I want to teach you how to cure back acne completely naturally. It seems that back acne has a lot of people confused because you can get back acne and no facial acne, or vice versa. You can have acne on your face but not on your back. It must be that there's different causative agents for these different types of acne. Now, this isn't wrong thinking. You would think that there are different types of acne, they must have different causes. But the fact of the matter is, all various types of acne and all sorts of skin conditions, including dry skin, eczema, psoriasis, and even dandruff, actually all share very similar pathologies. And I'll get into why acne can occur on your back in different parts of your body and not on your face or vice versa in a moment. But first, I want to share with you the physiology or the pathology or what's happening in your hormones under conditions like acne. You see, if you hop online and you search what causes acne, I could bet that most people are going to say it's caused by androgens. So androgens, they're the more masculine, they're referred to as male hormones. They're things like testosterone and DHT. And the common thinking is that these androgens in excess will increase the functioning of the sebum or oil gland. And as that oil is overproduced, it tends to clog the pore or the follicle or whatever, whether it's on the scalp or the skin, and it starts to accumulate bacteria and dirt. And those things lead to an inflammatory response that ultimately leads to acne. Now, this isn't completely wrong, but it is impartial thinking, because what's actually occurring under acne and a lot of skin conditions is the hyperactivity of the adrenal glands. And they're overproducing usually DHEA. And as the adrenal glands excessively produce DHEA, which is an androgen, it's rapidly converted into DHT and also into other stress hormones like prolactin. But this is the thing that people tend to overlook. What's causing the excessive stimulation of these adrenal glands? Well, it's usually estrogen. Estrogen is a stress chemical as a feedback loop with cortisol, and it does stimulate the adrenal glands to produce excess stress hormones or adrenal hormones like DHEA. So it's actually not just the excessive amount of DHEA and DHT that's acting on the oil glands, but it's having an excess of estrogen too, which tends to stimulate your adrenal glands as well. So to recap and summarize, it is actually estrogen in the body that stimulates and is responsible for the hyperactivity of the adrenal glands and the overproduction of DHEA and DHT that ultimately overly stimulates your oil glands, leading to the accumulation of oil, bacteria, dirt, and ultimately inflammation that causes the acne. So it's not DHT, DHEA alone, it is actually stress. So you've probably heard that stress causes acne. Well, this is because stress can increase the production of hormones like cortisol and estrogen, which stimulate your adrenal glands to produce too much of those androgen hormones, which are rapidly metabolized into DHT, which wouldn't happen otherwise if you had normal levels of estrogen and a good functioning thyroid. When your thyroid's working efficiently, it tends to oppose the production of estrogen, so it's not overly produced, causing this adrenal stress and ultimately acne. So at this point, it's true that the oil glands are producing too much oil, and that's causing the oil glands and the pores to become clogged, again leading to acne. Now, why do you get it on your back and not your face? Well, from my understanding, this comes back to the fact that your back just has a much larger surface area than, of course, your face, and your pores tend to be a lot larger in the back. So oftentimes people who experience stress to this degree, they'll tend to get back acne. From my understanding, or from my experience at least, most of the time, people that have acne on their face will still get some sort of acne on their back. Now, some of you might be wondering, if estrogen is what's responsible for stimulating the adrenals and causing acne, why is it that birth controls are so great for treating acne? Well, from my understanding, this is because estrogen and the synthetic progesterone, which actually acts more or less like estrogen in the body, when they're chronically elevated to such a high amount, as in the case of when you're taking birth control, the estrogen actually atrophies the oil glands. So it actually can completely kill off oil production, which is why usually acne tends to disappear after you're taking birth control, because there's so much estrogen. But when you just have slight estrogen dominance, too much estrogen than normal, this can stimulate the adrenal glands, because estrogen has a feedback loop with cortisol. So if you take tons and tons of estrogen, you might completely atrophy the oil glands and never have acne at all, but this isn't going to really address the root issue, and if anything, it's going to probably cause new issues because estrogen is very toxic in the body. So with all this in mind, I have a few tips for you for correcting the underlying hormonal imbalances that attribute to all types of acne, back acne included. So the first thing I'd recommend is getting in more vitamin A. Now, vitamin A regulates the sebum glands in the body. That's one of its major jobs. So if you have overactive sebum glands or not enough, taking in dietary vitamin A can help to regulate the functioning of the oil gland and usually bring it back to a normal secretion of oil. Now, something else that vitamin A does that's very essential for correcting acne is it opposes estrogen. So it's a great antagonist to estrogen, and it can lower estrogen in the body. So it's very great for acne in these two primary ways. Now, there is a presence of some certain androgenic activity in acne, but the fact of the matter is all these skin conditions actually are more or less caused by an excess of estrogen and hyperadrenal activity. Now, I will say in regards to vitamin A supplementation, you want to stick to food sources, and ideally animal sources, particularly grass-fed beef liver and egg yolks. And this is because vitamin A from plant sources, also known as beta-carotene, has to be converted by your liver into the bioavailable form known as retinol. And typically people with acne have stressed livers and stressed thyroids, and they're not going to efficiently convert the beta-carotene into the retinol form. Even so, the retinol form is so much more bioavailable and so much more effective in your biology and for correcting things like acne. Something else I'd recommend that's incredibly simple to do is to increase your intake of dietary calcium. Again, ideally from animal sources, because plant sources like your leafy greens, you have to cook them down and you have to eat an incredible amount, probably 2 cups every single day, to get the amount that you need to perform the functions that I'm going to talk about in a moment. So you can stick to plant sources, but again, you're going to need to cook those leafy greens, and you want about 2 cups every single day. Now, the reason that this is important is because when you have low calcium to phosphorus in your body, this increases the functioning of parathyroid and suppresses thyroid function. And when your thyroid is suppressed, this increases your reliance of stress hormones and stress chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline, which is what you do not want when you have acne, because typically, as we learned earlier, under acne, there is already an increased functioning of your adrenal glands that's leading to acne in the first place. So something simple you can do to increase thyroid function and decrease your reliance on stress hormones and adrenal function is to make sure you have more calcium to phosphorus. And the best way to do this is to increase your intake of calcium foods, because all foods have phosphorus. You can't limit your intake of phosphorus. Next, I would highly recommend utilizing adaptogenic herbs, particularly ashwagandha, ginkgo biloba, and eleuthero. These are all fantastic thyroid herbs, which will increase thyroid function and help your body adapt, decreasing your body's reliance on adrenal hormones and the reliance on stress for energy. However, all of your adaptogenic herbs are going to be very great for correcting the underlying hormonal imbalances associated with acne. Not to mention that sunlight has an antibacterial effect as well. So if your acne has developed to the point where bacteria is involved, stimulating more inflammation and more acne, sunlight is going to be one of the best things you can do for correcting the bacterial infections associated with acne. But ultimately, sunlight is probably one of the healthiest things that you could ever do for yourself. So get about 15 minutes every day of direct sunlight, ideally on large surface areas like your chest or your back. And last but not least, I would highly recommend looking into optimizing overall digestive function. Your entire digestive tract is highly reflective of your skin health. Those two are very intimately related. So if you have any sort of intestinal inflammation, you can guarantee that that's going to show up on your skin directly. More often than not, people with inflammatory conditions of the skin like psoriasis, eczema, acne, all have inflammatory conditions occurring in their intestinal tract. So definitely reference all the videos I've ever made on digestive health. Check out my online course, Perfect Digestion. You're going to want to figure out every possible way you can to lower digestive inflammation, everything from correcting stress that affects digestion, but also stress coming from your diet and lifestyle factors like poor sleep, etc. So these are obviously not all the things that you could do to correct acne and back acne. Obviously, there's tons of things you can do, but looking at the root causes, the hormonal imbalances involved in acne, so elevated levels of estrogen, cortisol, adrenal stress hormones, prolactin, and decreased functioning of the thyroid, that's stimulating the overproduction of oil in all of your pores. Obviously, there's tons of things you can do to correct those issues, but these should be some of the primary ways that you can correct these issues so that way you're not getting into arbitrary remedies and therapies. So with that in mind, definitely reference the other videos that I've made on skin health, so that way you can get a very wide perspective on what's causing skin issues and what you can do to correct them. However, that does bring this video to a close. If you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. And again, for referencing any of the herbs I mentioned throughout this video or any additional information, be sure to check out our blog and our tonic herb shop in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time.